In the very first arc of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, Part 8, JoJolion, our protagonist Josuke Higashikata encounters and defeats an enemy stand user. He goes by the name of Ojiro Sasame, and he tells Josuke a story about him and the late Yoshikage Kira, a dark and intimidating man who had found Ojiro's actions to be somewhat disagreeable. When the two men first met, Kira asked Ojiro a very simple question. He asked, "Are you a man of the land or a man of the sea?" He said that the beach, which lies at the water's edge, was very vague, and disliked that Ojiro constantly crossed back and forth between such a boundary line. If a dentist is a man of the land, and a fisherman is a man of the sea, then what would that make Ojiro, who, despite being a surfer, worked and lived on land? Kira believed that Ojiro was not a man at all, but merely an indecisive pretender. He would berate him that way constantly, and caused Ojiro so much emotional distress that Ojiro ate all 10 of his fingers in a frenzy. As JoJolion continues, we follow Josuke in his pursuit to reclaim his identity, until we eventually witness his origin for ourselves in the Vitamin C and Killer Queen arc. In this arc, we see one of these interactions between Ojiro and Kira for ourselves, and subsequently we are reminded once more about Kira's claims. A man must either be a man of the land or a man of the sea. If he is neither, then he is not a man at all. This is the second time this idea is being mentioned in the story, and so you might start applying this ideology to other characters, such as Kira himself as well as Josefumi, our deuteragonist for the arc in question. Kira is a ship doctor who spends most of his life on a shipping vessel, making him a man of the sea, while Josefumi Kujo is a university student who studies agriculture, making him a man of the land. With that in mind, we continue through the remainder of the arc, which eventually concludes with the death of Kira and Josefumi. Kira Yoshikage was a man of the sea, but the land would be the harbor for his grave. Josefumi Kujo was a man of the land, but he felt in his heart that he had died amongst the waves all those years ago. Both men died displaced from their world, and from their demise came the birth of their fusion, our protagonist, Josuke Higashikata. Suddenly, with this new context, Kira's ideology begins taking on a life of his own, far beyond its initial connotations. Because if half of Josuke is a man of the land, and the other half is a man of the sea, then what does that make him? Josuke Higashikata is a walking contradiction. He wears the clothing that a sailor typically would, but how often do you ever see him by the ocean? Josuke simply doesn't understand where his place in the world is, and that has, and continues to be, his greatest obstacle in achieving contentment with his identity. So, naturally we would conclude that Josuke is like Ojiro, merely an indecisive pretender, but that simply isn't the case. Because unlike Ojiro, Josuke is not an indecisive person, quite the opposite actually. He may be disoriented, but despite that, he is defined by his steadfast pursuit of his own goals, his dedication, and his resolve. Hell, just take a look at his name. While the original Josuke's name is comprised of the kanji for walking stick and helper, Josuke, Part 8 Josuke's name is comprised of the kanji for decide and helper, Josuke. He is, at his core, a decisive person who helps others. This is ultimately what sets him apart from Ojiro, and what makes Josuke not a failure in the eyes of Kira's ideology, but rather a unique example of it. He is neither Josefumi nor Kira, neither man of the land nor man of the sea. The issue Kira had with Ojiro was never that he stood on the water's edge, but that he wavered between the land and the sea. Be decisive, he would say. In the end, Josuke Higashikata is a man who does not waver between the land and the sea, but rather one who stands firmly on the shore. He has enough self-awareness to recognize what he is, but nothing to legitimize his own existence beyond those left behind by his predecessors. He's already taken root, but now he needs to look at his surroundings rather than past them, to see the forest for the trees. And ultimately, is that not what his whole journey is about? After all, so long as the land and the sea have the resolve to meet, and the waves can touch the sand, you'll find bubbles at the water's edge.